There we are. Okay, I'd like to start this meeting off by acknowledging we're on the traditional territory of the Sikas First Nation. It's on their land we live working today. You have an agenda in front of you for today's meeting. Is there any additions or deletions? Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. So 3.1, you have the reserves there of the town. Discussion.
Through the mayor, our chief financial officer has presented projected reserve balances as of December 31st, 2021. And our CFO is here to answer any questions council may have on the report.
So I guess to me is just so I remind me of there's contributions to capital out of these reserves and contributions to operation. Now, if we have equipment reserve, why would that go into the contributions into operations?
The way this is set up, it's because our equipment reserve is tracked as a separate fund, but it's actually a part of general. So to make it go into general in the end, when we amalgamate it, it has to have a transfer in and a transfer out. So the net effect is usually about an addition of $10,000 or more to the reserve once we weigh it all out. And we don't know what those equipment charges will be until we do all the maintenance and all the supplies for the year. So that's why it looks like that.
So what did we take out of attraction and retention that for 200,000 for to go into capital? Do you remember what that was?
I'd have to go grab my sheet to take a look at that. Offhand, I'm not remembering.
That was capital for 2021.
Yeah, so it was approved transfers in the capital special projects that were approved in the budget for 2021. Be allocated from attraction retention. I do have it on my desk if you want me to go grab it.
To me, it just so I kind of understand where we're using, like, and then, we use out of the gas tax reserve, we use 59,000.
Yeah, that was for the first and second, or the third and second street water main replacement projects. That's the part that was completed in this year. The capital and capital planning was all of the assorted projects that we had allotted for to come out of that reserve.
Any questions from anybody? Yes.
Just want to make sure that this doesn't take into consideration the budget that was presented late last year or the capital that we haven't got into yet.
This is only 2021 and does not represent anything that will be approved or has been approved for 2022. These are just our ending numbers for 2021.
Any other questions? Yes, yeah.
I can quickly go grab the paper off my desk if you want to know what the items are that are coming out of those reserves. I'll just go grab it. Just 1 second.
I can save you a trip, Margaret. Just because I have the benefit of having two screens here, I have the Capital 2021 worksheet that the CFO has prepared. And council did authorize $199,090 of the A&R reserve to be used towards the Riverside Trails project. So that's where that 199,000 is going towards, is the paved trails in Riverside Park.
I have one more question, right down at the bottom. Well, my question is that number in the bottom right-hand corner of 13,302,000, that must be a wrong number, would it not? Because we're at almost 19 million on the far side. We've spent, or we taken in another $2 million into it, and we spent about 2.2 million. So it should be just about a thing. I think that 13 should be an 18.
I think it should, because I'm looking now and I can see there's 11 and then there's 5 and 1, and that already doesn't make 13. So I must have missed one of the reserves in my.
So there's actually about 18 or 19.
Yes.
In that.
Thank you, Jerry. Sorry.
Well, nope, it's just, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, there's something. That NBSS math, but
I was doing.
What's that?
It is of $30 from left to right. 18.
Well, it's still 18.9.
Yeah, 18.
Yes, that's around.
And I can send an updated one that.
Yeah, it is. They say that. I just wanted to make sure that something, you know. Okay, so, you know, that just gives us a bit of an idea of what we have going forward, you know, and then anything that we should know about the general operating and you know, that, because that's, you know, 3.7 million. Like, how does the general operating money get into there? Is that just excesses year over year?
Yes.
As far as we know, we don't have any surplus from 2021.
We have the surpluses in here, but there will be a surplus in each one of the fund accounts. There's always a surplus.
Okay.
And through the mayor to council, just to add to Margaret's statement, it's typical for municipalities not to say how much is going into the surplus until the full financial audit has been completed. Because there's always going to be accounting for adjustments to inventory or reviews of how different things have been itemized inside the general ledger. So you'll likely see the changes to those surplus balances before May 15th when the audit report is presented to council. There will be some preliminary numbers presented alongside the updated operating budget for 2022, where preliminary actuals for 2021 will be presented to council. So you'll see where we underspent in some areas and other areas where we were either on budget or slightly over.
So basically, we're sitting with about 23 million in reserves at this point.
Yes, so it would be the 18
Yeah.
and plus the 3.
19, probably close to 4 by the time we.
The 18 plus the 3 is
The
surplus?
3734, yeah, that's the surplus in each of the operating reserves.
On page 2, yeah, on page 2 there's.
Got it.
And like I say, that's 3.7, but we know that there's going to be surpluses in each of those. 3 areas, which could be another 300,000 too.
Doesn't include, yeah, it doesn't include anything forecasted.
Okay. Everybody discuss it. Kevin, is there any questions you have? Okay. Okay. So just hang on to that. Maybe, yeah, if you do send out an updated one, you know, just so we kind of have that, you know, in the future, exactly what.
I've just missed the capital and capital planning reserve in the total on the bottom. It's only that one reserve, so it's missing the 5 and 9. So I must have not hit that cell.
I had touched on this when I was out of the room, but with the safe restart, what was the time limit on that? That we talked about this a couple months ago, I've forgotten.
We said by the end of 2022, so we have it spent for 2022.
Going forward?
That would be for council to determine under the 400 and some thousand that's been allocated from the little graph that I gave you showing where all the COVID safe restart money was going to go. There was about 400 and some thousand in there that was allocated for council initiatives. So council can decide how they want to use that money, whether it be to put it towards a capital project, such as internet, or do initiatives within the community, or however you would like to.
So the thing is, okay, and that graph was in the budget that you gave us, the operating budget that you gave us. So you say there's of this 900,000 that's in here now, there's 500 that's been allocated already.
Yes,
Can you tell us where?
within the budget.
Yeah, you said we've allocated 5 already into something.
Yeah, that's been allocated in the capital budget, which I haven't brought forwards yet to you.
That's where you spent by 2022.
Yeah, so there are capital projects that are being allocated for that money, and there's also some operations, and there is the council initiatives amount that's in there.
Part of the 917?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We haven't made any decision yet on the 5, have we? I'm just trying to get clarity.
There's been no decisions on any of those things, the whole 917 yet.
Okay.
917 has to be spent by the end of this year. So however we do it.
But what you're saying is staff, and Gerald, help me out on this. Are you saying that staff have some recommendations for about half of it?
That's correct. So if council after the meeting goes and looks up the December 6th, 2021 budget meeting, the breakdown of the proposed allocation from staff is inside the briefing note covering the entire operating budget. So that shows where roughly half is being recommended by staff for certain projects or operational expenses, and leaving about $400,000 for council to decide what kind of initiatives or projects council wishes to pursue with that funding.
You said that was in the December 13th?
6th.
Oh, okay, that was a paper, we would have received that in a paper copy, eh?
That one was posted online as well. So it should be on Civic Web.
We haven't really got a binder yet.
Oh, I got it. Okay, any other questions? Okay. The Chaco First Nations memorandum. Oh, before we go any further, so when will we be having the next budget meeting, Jerome?
So right now, staff are looking at February 22nd or special meeting date around then, just given the availability of all 7 council members. Talking to the mayor, we did agree that it's likely best to have it as its own dedicated meeting, given the amount of information and the level of decisions that need to be made. And just looking at how busy the next couple agendas are. But you should be getting one here in the next 2 weeks with a full picture of where we're sitting for a proposed 2022 budget.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions?
Well, yeah, to staff, does it feel like we're late? Or is this on par with where we've been?
It's where we've been usually.
The biggest challenge that we have here right now is that we have some decisions that we need to make sooner rather than later. And so I guess to me is as soon as we can have this meeting, because once it's presented to council, then we have to have a discussion, like it'll be what, 3 meetings, at least to go over, not only see what staff have presented, but then to go back and come back with some, fine tunings, and then come back again with, because we have to put everything in that we have, into the box, and then see what that means as far as the budget is concerned, I guess is where I'm challenged, right now, because if we don't get it till the end of February, and we still have to, then, once we get that, then like I say, we have a few things later on that we'll have to try to fit in there as well. That'll be a second meeting, and then come back for a third meeting. It'll be a fairly significant, jam into a short period of time, is what I sense.
Yeah, and I appreciate the very tight timeline we have, especially on your part as council to review the budget. As soon as we have the budget documents ready to go and the business cases are finalized, we'll be putting that budget package together and getting it out as soon as we can, just to give council the time to run through the documents. The other thing we can do is Margaret can have the Excel spreadsheet in the council chambers, and we can see what those changes look like live inside the budget package as a whole. So I know it's a tight deadline. I know there's lots of difficult decisions to be made in the next couple of weeks, and we're going to do our best to support council in trying to get to a final budget. And going forward, my instructions to staff have been clear that our aim is to have a final budget ready for end of December, not end of March.
Okay.
Just heard that for a lot of years.
Yeah, well,
Hey, Kevin, they're trying to restore connection. Should be about 5 minutes.
Should be part of our partnership strategy with City West.
I mean, any upgrade to bandwidth at this point is an automatic yes.
Exactly.
Mask on, TELUS just doesn't cut it anymore.
No.
You're on City West at your store, hey?
We're not, we're in the process of setting up with them. We're still setting up a final date for the install, but we will be.
We may need an IT specialist. Just hired full-time and on retainer.
Okay, we're going.
We're good. He's coughing over, I don't want
Is
to
that
see
your
that.
old computer? or is it-
Another two.
Oh, they switched sides now.
Oh, they changed rooms, that's what it was.
So we're used to Kevin to being on the left.
He's far right.
All right. How's that feel, Kevin?
Okay, I think this is coming up a little bit later on in our discussion here. Hey, the Chaco First Nations, Gerald.
So through the mayor to council, as previously discussed, staff have presented the memorandum of understanding for the Nechako First Nations and Regional District for council's review. Options for proceeding are to review and request with the Nechako First Nations to become a signatory, or just retain this for information. If council does decide to go down the road of asking to become a signatory to this MOU, the next step would be a letter from the mayor to the respective chiefs of the 3 First Nations that are party to this agreement, along with the RDBN board.
So, just so I'm clear, what you're suggesting is then that we're just an added person into the bottom of this entire agreement. So it would be agreement between ourselves, the 3 First Nations and the regional district about Nechako.
That's correct. If council feels comfortable with the commitments established by section 2 and 3 with a focus on reducing flows to a more natural rate and then increasing biodiversity and river health for the Nechako River, then the easiest solution would be to ask the parties of this MOU to enter in as a 5th party to this agreement, rather than trying to start from scratch with the 3 First Nations and invest staff time in negotiating what is basically the same form of agreement. This would also give us access to the information being contemplated by the Nechako First Nations and Regional District in their own MOU deliberations on the health and well-being of the Nechako watershed.
Okay, I guess in principle, I agree with it. My big question is understanding what more natural flows are, because that can have, what those natural flows are and what more natural flows are and the impact it'll have to our community. That's my question. Before signing on.
Kevin, do you want to explain that?
My personal feeling is that's yet to be determined, but it will look more like a natural cycle with a freshet and then a gradual lowering over the summer, rather than the very unnatural flow regime we have right now.
So it doesn't talk about the rate of the flow then, because I agree with the natural flows, but my concern is what is the rate of those flows, right?
From my point of view, it's talking more about the shape of the flow than the actual flow itself, but that may be open to interpretation. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And I think, Kevin, help me out if I'm wrong. I think if we get to be part of this, then we can look out for ourselves of what it's going to mean to our community. One of the things that concerns me is that, it's talking about a natural flow, and they've talked about the Eaton flows and a lot of work at trying to calculate, would that mean that there would be a flood in Vanderhoof, every spring? Like that, but we don't know for sure. And if we're not at the table where we can say, okay, this is what the impact to our community is going to be, we just don't have a voice, And so the thing is as much as the regional district is there for all 15, areas, communities and areas, it's only us that really has a passion for it. With cycles, yeah.
Last C to C, right?
I'm going to speak, I don't know what the motion is, but I'm not yet ready to sign on to the MOU. None of us, and I get that we're not maybe at the table, although we're represented by the regional district. We haven't been at a table. Kevin and Cindy and you have gone to these other meetings as well. So I don't understand the implications of a lot of things in this MOU. Restore the health. Tell me what the health means. I don't have a clue what the health means. I'm writing a proposal for the 2 billion tree program, and I'm struggling on the health of streams that we're working on. But I can kind of define it, and I don't see it anywhere in here, and I don't see deliver a new flow. And whenever I really appreciated the Eaton flow report, but at a point where I'm scared of some of those numbers, and I'm I'm happy based on the 4 atmospheric rivers that hit Abbotsford and the Lower Mainland, that we have something that can help us manage floodwaters. That is a drastic change. Almost not it's just a different change. I don't see anything in here that can define health or new flow. And so when we sign an MOU, maybe that's one of the things. Anyway, I can't see it in there. And if it's December 31st, but I guess you'd have to renew it. But I'm just not a fan of signing an MOU that I can't quantify a bunch of things in it. I respect the decision of the regional district, but I'm not there.
Confuses me is, and it's already been stated, is 2B, because, Mayor talked about earlier that, it's important for us to be at the table, have conversations and be part of a process. But if you sign this, aren't we already agreeing to 2B, saying that this is, because it says will be replaced with a multilateral agreement that will deliver a new flow which mimics the shape of the natural hydrographic. Is it already making that commitment, or is it allow us to come there to have the discussion around what it should look like? I just get confused with how it's written. It makes it sound like we're agreeing that this is what we want. Not the case. And I like the idea of being able to be at the table and having input, but it's already, it's like it's decided that that's what. Am I reading this wrong?
So through the mayor to council, as you're all well aware, the MOU is a non-binding commitment to strive towards generalized goals for the Nechako River system. That said, Section 2 does outline that as a stated goal of the MOU, one of the outcomes is that Section 2B, along with the remainder of Section 2, where an agreement gets targeted between Rio Tinto, Canada, the province, and the parties to this agreement to have more natural flows and a different governance framework for the Nechako watershed system, which includes Kenny Dam. My own advice is it may be better for the district to be party to the discussions around this MOU and reserve the right to exit out of the agreement in the future if ultimately the district council feels that it's better to be outside and away from the table versus remaining in the table. As of right now, these discussions are about the main watershed impacting the district of Vanderhoof are happening without us at the table.
In what, where?
Well, they're being discussed right now because we know that number one is the smelter's not operating, okay, and so they can't take the water that we are. We know that the snowpack is above average. And so we know that there are some decisions that are going to be needed to be made real soon. And I guess to me is, I feel a little hamstrung if there isn't, you know, I've asked a number of times to make sure that, yeah, there is somebody from Vanderhoof, outside of Vanderhoof, outside of me at the discussions. But I think this whole thing of what does the natural flow look like? What does it mean to Vanderhoof? And what is going to be the impact for flooding in Vanderhoof? I think if there's not a voice from Vanderhoof that comes back and reports it here to council, how are we going to know how to make decisions going forward in the future? I guess to me is Brian, my question to you, you know, where it talks about, you know, you talked about the health, you know, it talks about the tributaries, which you say you're working on, helps restore robust fish populations, you know, it talks about sturgeon and salmon, talks about biodiversity, and I guess to me is and then First Nations, you know, traditional. I guess to me is, my question is, you know, we don't know what health of the river means. We know that right now the river is not healthy. You know, that's clear. But the thing is, I guess my challenge is that how would you more define it with as little knowledge as what we have?
Had to be written down, deliver a new flow which mimics the shape of the natural hydrograph from Dr. Eaton. I feel inadvertently we have a voice at the table already. That is, you know, we're one vote of the regional district, so I don't see us being left out. I don't. The regional district's supposed to be at this table already, so if they're not, that's not an issue of the District of Vanderhoof. That's the partners of this agreement here. And if they're not getting together to communicate, then that almost tells me that the MOU isn't working already, is it not? Because you're not at the table, or the regional district's not at the table, and you sign this agreement, but you want us to sign to get to the table. Like, to me, the regional districts should, you know, as the regional district, you should be saying, this is what we're working on. And I understand what you said at the beginning of your comment. And so I don't know if that's the regional district be part of this agreement or not, but that's my concern. We're represented. I'm just not up to speed on how this would affect us. So that's where I say that.
Kevin, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just really feel that, you know, there's going to be some decision made on this fast. We all know how this works. There'll be a settlement out of court. There'll be something that a decision is made fast. And I just think if we're not there and having our voice heard, a decision will get made and then we live with the consequence. I think we really need to be at the table now more than ever.
May I? I'm not trying to argue. I'm just trying to, why are we not there now? We're represented by the regional district. And
Go ahead.
yeah, and I'm just trying to, what's the difference? Please, you know, the regional district signed this. What's been going on that the regional district and these three other parties have discussed that I'm missing? And if it has been going on, the regional district's going to hear about it and we're going to hear about it. I'm missing maybe my logic is irrational, but.
So you want the regional district to make the decisions as to how a high water flow would affect Vander?
As you've said in the past, we have 2 point something kilometers or whatever it is that, maybe it's more, 5 kilometers that goes through us. The regional district hosts most of I would expect the regional district would be involved because the regional district has most of the Nechako River in it. Oh, and I would trust that you're taking Vanderhoof's voice to the regional district table when you're talking about all of the river. And I'm not, Jerry, I'm not trying to argue things. I'm not comfortable signing an MOU that I have no idea what health means and deliver a new flow means. If we deliver a new flow and it's 700 or 900 or 1,000, we're in trouble. Like as a lawyer looked at this from our standpoint, where's our liability? Now I keep piling on more stuff now, but I don't feel comfortable with the terminology. And we have C2C meetings every quarter. And if it's a big deal, then we should be meeting with Psychos directly on this at one of those meetings. Anyway, I've spoken enough.
The difference between the RD and what the RD looks at, the RD looks out for about whatever, 200 kilometers or whatever of whatever the Nechako River is. We have 2 or 3 kilometers that go through our town that are affected by high water or ice events. At some point, we need to have the expertise of our staff and of the residents of Vanderhoof that this, if you go to that flow, we won't be able to establish this flow if we won't have input into the flow of how it affects Vanderhoof. Because the RD is looking for what the general thing is. Okay, so when they come back and say, okay, we're going to talk about what the flow means to Vanderhoof, it's not the RD that's going to speak for Vanderhoof. It has to be Vanderhoof there. We have to have our staff. I'll go to you right away. We have to have our staff and our expertise at the table saying, if you do that, this is what it's going to be. Gerald.
Through the Mayor to Council, one thing to highlight here, and this is where I'm getting the sense. So the regional district and even Psychos are restricted by sections 4 and 5 of the agreement from sharing any information that they discuss at this table with us. So if there's something ongoing and they want us to be informed, all 4 of those parties have to agree to share that information with Vanderhoof. For example, our representative of the regional district couldn't come back and report out to council what information is being shared at that table. They'd be violating the confidentiality requirements of the Local Government Act as a regional district representative. And in turn, I can't contact my counterparts with any of the First Nations that party to the agreement or with the regional district and ask for a debrief of what's going on without them violating their own employment contract obligations. So realistically, if Vanderhoof chooses not to be part of this agreement, we won't have access to this information unless the 4 parties to that agreement can agree to share that with the District of Vanderhoof. Now, in terms of potential liability stemming from this, as of right now, entering into this agreement doesn't create liability. If we enter into a successor agreement where there's an exchange of consideration and it forms an actual contract between all the parties, that's where the liability gets created. In my view, this MOU only creates the framework for discussions to happen around how the Nechako River is going to be governed and regulated going forward. That said, I'm not a lawyer that's registered with the Bar Association of British Columbia. And if council would like further legal advice to outline the risks of this memorandum of understanding, we can certainly get that for council prior to further consideration of this MOU.
Yes.
Thanks, Gerald. I'm just looking at, I don't know if it's section 3C. It says use reasonable efforts to convene discussions with stakeholders, groups, and other levels of government to share information. So how does that, does that not allow us to have information or to be, does that not say that we are to be advised of anything that is happening at the table? Is that not what that means?
So section 3C, in my view, it expresses the purpose that yes, those discussions do have to happen, but they wouldn't be able to share any information that which is being shared but not authorized for release.
I see, okay, so they're just looking for our input, not necessarily, okay.
I always read it to be is that it was a communications
Okay.
thing. It wasn't a decision-making opportunity.
Yeah.
Did the regional district have a lawyer look at it?
Mhm. But I think we should have our lawyer look at it because we have different concerns than the regional district. The regional district doesn't have the same implications of flooding, and I think the concern that someone raised here is what would the liability be to us if we go in there and agree to this, and then you know, if it floods a certain area, could there be
I appreciate that.
you know, liability? And so the thing is, if would, you know, advise you to do is just say, ask staff to go back and get a legal opinion on this, and see what the best route is for us to have.
It's good.
Is that good?
Yeah, I think that's it'll make me, maybe some of us feel more comfortable.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I guess that's helpful because
Have a-
prior to us signing it.
Reviewed by our
Yeah.
legal,
Yes,
team
June the first.
future
It's
liability.
gone down the road so far that it's.
Any more discussion? Is that good, that we, you know, just that to take this away and have it reviewed by a lawyer as to, you know, future liability to the district of Vanderhoof?
Yeah, so that part is cleared. When we receive that advice, we'll present the advice itself in camera to council.
Some advice if we do sign onto it. Gerald mentioned about the ability to walk away if it's going in direction that we do not. But can that be part of those questions? How would that work?
Yeah.
Is that not in here that we have, that there's a certain amount of time that,
7,
Was there? Where is it?
section 7, I think.
It's only a short time frame though.
Yeah, and then the two parties got to get together to renew it. Yeah. Is that 7?
I thought there was another thing that said if we weren't happy, we could give 2 or 3 months notice to pull out.
So
Anyways,
through the mayor to council, it doesn't specify in here the specific terms of termination. However, that being said, at common law, the district as an independent legal person has the ability to exit any kind of agreement that it enters into. And all a contractual term of termination does is clarify the notice of termination that would need to be provided to the other parties. So realistically, in my view, at common law, the district would be able to terminate its obligations under this agreement with 30 days notice, unless otherwise specified.
Yeah.
any question?
Just one more thing. I hope it's not really totally pertinent to this, but I hope with B, I'm still hung up on 2B that before we sign it, that everybody in the room understands exactly what that would look like.
If it got in.
If it was put in place, that 2B, that what's the worst case scenario for our community? What would that affect in terms of our situation? Because if we're signing off on behalf of the District of Vanderhoof, I want to be able to know, you know, what not liability, but what impact it has. I know Kevin has a pretty solid understanding, but I don't think all of us have an understanding of what this could look like. We went along and said, this is where we agreed the health would be for this river, and this is the impact it could have, worst case scenario. I just want to know that. So we go into it with our eyes wide open saying, yeah, we signed off on that knowing that there's a 1 in 100 risk of this. Okay, we know what it is. I don't know what it is.
Were you here when?
Yeah, but I think I need it solidified again, to be honest, Jerry.
Okay, so just a review of the Eaton report and what the impact would be to us as a town.
That's a short review that goes to this, so when somebody asks, it's like I always say, if somebody comes up, you guys signed that, why'd you sign that? Because 2B says this, yes, and we understand this is what the impact would look like. Concise enough that we can explain it, because right now, if you got asked that tomorrow on the street, you're pretty aware, but I mean, the rest of us maybe aren't.
That would be the scenario to ask the lawyers, that if we followed that report, and there were some big numbers in there, I'll throw in 1,000 or whatever it may be. What does that mean? I guess that's what you're saying. Where's our liability?
I guess my head goes back to the conversation we've been having around our infrastructure. I keep zooming back to that and going, okay, what does that mean if we have one of these events? What does that do to our community? How does that affect our infrastructure? And I know maybe I'm being negative. I just need to understand that. That's all.
And Kevin, you went away, and I don't understand. I just remember you went away and ran these notes along with the Notley flows.
That's right.
And you did some work on that, or is there somebody else that we can get to work with us on that?
Yeah, and that is with the Eaton flows, that is the sort of the little bit unknown, is that they're upstream of the Notley River is where they are measured. So if you have a really high snowpack in the Notley, is where you would get a lot of the potential for flooding, right? It's the Notley system that becomes the unknown.
Mm.
Which it always has. If you look at every year that we flooded, it's been the Notley flow that has nailed us, say. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, this is timely. 5.1. So my question is, and I'll just jump in, would that mean new computers for everybody in the office here?
So the way this request for a decision was written was we received a quote to do the council chambers and the VCC. I'll speak specifically to the council chambers. So that would be upgrading council chambers for recording capabilities, a better quality system, additional screens, so better, and hopefully fix some of the connection issues that we have as well. So that would also include wireless mics, speakers, and that's software as well. Yeah.
So would this be the same kind of system as what we have at the RD, where if someone wants to speak, they can press the button and they go on the speakers list?
I don't know the specific one. I do know that it is a wireless mic system. So I can double check to make sure that if that's council's wishes, to ensure that that is.
Hardware upgrades,
Hardware, yes. So
laptops and stuff.
I don't know. This one was just for be more so for like the person taking the minutes, that it's a wireless keyboard that could be housed somewhere separate that we don't have. So it's just more functional.
Then would have is not, you just have that dedicated to that function right there. Yeah.
I guess to me is, like I know Fort St. John, I think that's where we got our idea from. We didn't reinvent the wheel. We went, they did all the work on it and stuff like that. And we have for years just tried to make do with this system, and we've added a piece here and a piece there and a piece. And at some point we got to get an entire system that works together and we're not.
And that system that was installed at the regional district was done by the same company. So I'm assuming it would be a very similar system. I can make sure that that's council's wishes to ensure that that system.
Is there a way to get a listing from them of what they want to deliver? Like, what are the deliverables?
Basically, for this one, we received a quote, but it came in higher than what we can direct award. So we have to go out for RFP anyways, to follow our procurement. This isn't a set in stone. This was a quote, so we had a budget number to go with. So there could be some here there within that as well.
I would really echo the mayor's comments about today's technology is outdated tomorrow. So the best technology that we can buy is what we should be buying. It shouldn't be last year's technology. So buttons, cameras right here, whatever it is, has to be that, because or else we'll be back here in 5 years because we didn't get the ones with cameras. If we're going virtual.
You want to see your face, right?
No, you don't. And you won't. So that's a good thing.
So with the council chambers kind of taken care of, the plan is if council wishes to move forward with the council chambers upgrade, some of this equipment in this room would be transferred over to the VCC. It's still in good condition and there's nothing wrong with it. So we can repurpose some of it over the.
I'll tell you say they're faithful, I tell you, it sure is nice that nobody has to guess who's speaking and where, and it's going to be recorded. And, you know, we hope that we never go through this again, but the future is there.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, people want to know, well, who's talking, who is saying? I can tell you, it is just so good that, yep, it's there, it's clear, everybody knows that, you know what it is. Kevin, did you want to speak?
I guess it kind of got covered, but I just want to echo, let's make sure we know what we're purchasing, and let's not be, if we need a little bit more budget, let's find a little bit more budget and make sure that we make this something that's going to work and something that's going to be satisfactory for citizens to watch. We know that they want to have access to council virtually too. Let's make it something worth watching. Yeah, so we can engage that way. Watching Cindy drink her coffee is not the most engaging.
I'll make the motion, council approve the project budgets as presented.
Second?
Second. I have a question.
Yeah.
What's the time frame?
We have to go for RFP, so it's probably, I believe that we have the RFP just about ready to go, so we can put it out, hopefully if all goes well this week yet, and it'd be about a month, and then probably the work is probably another month. If the successful proponent that's doing the BCC project, it might align quite well with that one as well, so.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, and I have a motion to go into camera under sections 91C of the community charter. And that further, all persons other than the mayor, councilors, and pertinent staff be excluded from the meeting.
I'll make that motion.
All in favor? Carried. And can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, Gerald, who's all staying here? Do they know?
So if I can get Waleed, Rhonda, and Margaret to stay behind.
Anybody else know how to run that?
Oh, I was gonna say, where are you going?